What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Long Game Podcast hosted by Thomas Kopelman and Jacob Turner. In each episode, you'll hear us break down financial topics that are relevant to you and your situation. Our goal is to help bring credible financial information to you in short, bite-sized episodes.
All opinions expressed on this show are for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Nothing on the Long Game Podcast should be considered advice. Always consult with your team of professionals before making any decisions regarding your finances.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Long Game Podcast. I am your host, not co-host, Thomas Kopelman. So everybody, this is just kind of a year-end episode to talk a little bit about the year, talk a little bit about next year and some of the things that I'm thinking. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for everybody for listening. This podcast is something that I've been doing for a really long time. I'm just under 200 episodes in. You know, there's been a lot of changes. The one core thing that stayed the same is it's really been me as the main host, but you know, I've had Trayton with me. I've brought on a lot of great guests. Last year I had Jacob with me, and you guys have stuck with it through it all. And, you know, we're getting a lot of listens actually. I mean, when I first started this podcast, my goal was that, 100 people would listen per episode at some point. And we've crushed that. This year, we average well over 500 listens an episode. A lot of them get 1,000 or so. And we've officially crossed well over 75,000 downloads on the podcast. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that is listening. I really hope this podcast has added a lot of value for you, educated you. And I know there's a lot of business owners and financial planners listening. And so, as a business owner, every year I audit my strategy. Is my strategy the thing that I want to continue on? And so that's what I'm going to talk about in this episode. And so most of you following me, at least follow me on Twitter. And so if you do, you know that is the core of my social media and marketing strategy. All Street has grown tremendously over the last few years. When I first launched All Street, I had about $4,000 a month of client revenue. And that was 3 years and 2 months ago. And the last 2 months, I've done over 100,000 of revenue. And a lot of that is credit to Twitter and building my client base from Twitter. So the core of my strategy is still always going to be Twitter, as that's what builds my business. And that's going to be the same thing for next year. I'm really focused on continuing to put out good content there, continue to educate people there. But I do still believe in long form content. And so threads are a way for me to put out long form content. But the other two ways I can have long form content is through my podcast and through YouTube. So there's a quick little shout out. If you don't follow me on YouTube, please do. That's something I'm just over a year into. It takes a lot of time and effort, but I'm putting out really good videos that are continually getting better. So if you haven't, go subscribe over there. But for next year, the podcast is going to look a little different. So, about a little over a year ago, Jacob came to me and said, "Hey man, I've really wanted to start a podcast. I don't want to do it alone. I've tried with some other people and they just weren't a good fit. I think you'd be a great person to do the podcast with. Would you be willing to let me join?" And after some thought, I was like, of course, I like doing it with another host. It makes it fun. You don't always have to schedule guests. And, at the end of the day, it was still my podcast and, it's still really good promotion for me. So I was like, sure, no reason to not do it. But after doing it for a year, we both decided it probably makes more sense for him to go start his own at this point. I think it gave him a lot of really good reps. But at the end of the day, it really is my podcast. It's my name. It's on my YouTube. And it made sense for him to actually go and do his own. So as of next year, the podcast is going to be just me. I'm obviously going to continue doing it, but it's going to look a little bit different. Sorry, my dog's over here in the background if you're watching and she's a little antsy. But what it's going to look like next year is I'm going to go topic through topic. There is a few things that I wanted to go through on business planning that I had a few guests lined up. So I'm going to start January talking about business planning for the year. We're going to talk about, is it the right time to hire and when is the right time to hire? We're going to talk about actually managing your finances in the correct way as a business owner for next year. We'll talk about setting up the right retirement accounts. We'll do 4 episodes. From there, we're going to go part by part of a financial plan. So we're going to go through cash, and inside of cash, we're going to talk about budgeting, how much cash to hold on hand, how to save for short-term and mid-term goals. We're going to talk about just, managing your cash flow and automating your financial life. And then we're going to go through debt, and there's going to be a lot to talk about. And then we're going to go through investing, and then we're going to go through surplus, and then we're going to go through, all the topics. So that's me, estate planning, insurances, retirement planning, equity comp planning. We're just going to rifle on through the whole year, and we're going to do like month by month topic. Every episode is going to be 10 to 20 minutes long, but it's going to be all the same things I talk about with my clients. So I'm really pulling back the curtain, going part by part. And it's going to be hard, right? Because like how to save for short-term goals, that one might be easy, but planning for retirement is very different for somebody who invests in real estate versus somebody who owns a business versus somebody who's W-2 versus somebody with equity comp. So there's going to be a lot of nuances and things, and I'm going to try to hit on all of them throughout the next year of the podcast. But this way it really flows topic by topic and kind of how we build financial plans here at All Street. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be amazing learning for people who are financial planners, because I know a lot of financial planners listen, but it's also going to be really great for anybody who's doing their own finances. And I also think it's a really great lens for you to get to know me better, to see is the way that he thinks about things, the way that I think about things, is he somebody that I want to hire? Because, my content and my podcast is all about education, but it's also all about helping people find the right fit for a financial advisor. And if I'm the right fit, then they end up reaching out. And that's really how my entire business has been grown. So I'm really excited for next year. If there's topics that you want to make sure we talk about, please submit them to me. I'll make sure where they fit in. If it's about cash flow or investing or whatever, I'll make sure to do that. And I'm also still going to bring on some guests. I'm going to do most of the podcast solo. And to be honest, this is a scary thing. I never wanted to do a solo podcast because it's really hard to make sure you hit every topic, make sure that you don't say and like, and you think too much. But I think after doing this for so long and so many reps with my clients, doing a podcast on my own actually won't be that hard. And I'm not going to be the person who does a scripted podcast. I don't like that. I think that takes away a lot of the nuance. It requires so much prep. And so I'm going to be a work in progress here, but I'm not going to script it. I'm going to come in with a topic. And this is what I do day in and day out with every single client, all the same topics I talk about. So I really hope I'm able to do this without a script. So anyways, really excited for next year. My one ask: we have over 500 people who listen to this episode. We have about 55-star reviews. I would love to get that up. So if you've learned from this podcast, if you found it helpful, I ask, please, please, please subscribe and go like the podcast. Podcasts are really hard to get out because when you search on Spotify, you don't search financial planning and I come up, right? It's not like that how it is on YouTube, for example. So you liking, you subscribing, and then you sharing with friends, family, coworkers is the way that I can really continue to build this podcast. And the better this podcast does, the better my business does, but the better promotion, production, et cetera, that I am able to put into it. So thank you everybody for listening for this year. I think it's been a really awesome year, and I am super excited for next year and doing this podcast alone, plus a few guests. So hope you guys have a great holiday, and we'll see you for a really great start to this podcast here in January.